So in this video, I want to cover 7 spiritual insights that may help us get through difficult conversations that may be coming up, either Thanksgiving, Christmas, and it just came to me. There's no particular order with this, and it's from a variety of different teachers over the years. And the first is to assess your vibe. And what I mean by this is feel what your mind, or maybe something deeper, what's it going for? Does it want conflict? Because if it wants conflict, it will find it. Because when egos clash, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so it's easy to find drama. It's easy to push buttons. And if that's what you're looking for, look, no judgment. That's sometimes how humans manifest, sometimes how consciousness manifests itself in terms of drama. It happens. But go into it with at least an honest sense of what you at least think you're looking for. The second is that all spiritual teachers teach us that you are not the mind, you are not the body, you are not this voice in the head. So if you're in the middle of a conversation and the voice in the head is kind of losing it, what do you care? It's not who you truly are. It's this outdated mind program that causes more problems than it's worth. And so it's an identity issue. If you identify with mind, then you think you're losing it. But if the mind is just this old left brain program and it's losing it, well, what do you care? As Krishnamurti put it, all beliefs are hindrances. And so we get through this by recognizing who we truly are. And again, this kind of follows from the first one. If you've already identified with mind, then you may be looking for conflict. Third is, how often is the mind correct? And if we look, and I've done this in so many different videos, at best, the thinking mind is right maybe 50% of the time. And here it's important to talk about Ramachandran and his right brain conceptualization, that the left brain is for beliefs. And what are people debating and arguing but beliefs? But the right side of the brain is this devil's advocate, and that's a really important counter to our beliefs. And the devil's advocate monitors the beliefs of the left brain, and when they get too far off the reality track, the right brain jumps in and makes a course correction. And of course, this is because, as I've talked about in other videos, the left brain mind is a really terrible GPS to reality, and it needs these course corrections. And so if your right brain might be maybe not living up to its task, we need other right brains who help us course correct. So when Rama talked about the right brain being damaged, so this devil's advocate was offline, the left brain would make up outrageous stories that had nothing to do with reality. So the person is sitting there with their paralyzed arm, and the left brain would say, "Oh, I'm pointing to your nose." So they would hallucinate that their arm was pointing to Ramachandran's nose, when in fact it was sitting there paralyzed on the desk. And this is difficult because since 2015, at some point with social media, the task of social media is to reward our egos. How else does it get to us to search on our phones all day? And so what it's feeding our egos is one version of reality that matches the left hemisphere belief. So we don't get much devil's advocate. We don't get much right brain counter. And so think of this as a gift, that here's someone else with a different position. Are they acting like your right brain at this moment? The fourth, and if you've ever watched Byron Katie, she's so wonderful at this, because what she does is she acts as if she's the ultimate right brain devil's advocate. And so I kind of call this taking a Byron Katie on all of this. And so maybe the conversation has started, maybe you're just waiting for things to get started. But by taking a Byron Katie, you admit that you do not know with absolute certitude anything. And so what Byron Katie does is she questions people on their fundamental assumptions of the left brain. Are you sure that this is true? Are you absolutely sure? And the wonderful thing about that process is people eventually fall into this wonderful truth that we don't really know things as certain as the left brain would have us believe that we do. So whether it's before the conversation, during the conversation, or after, take a Byron Katie and just admit, a Zen mind, a beginner's mind, that you do not have absolute certainty on any of your positions, as the other person does either. So number 5, spiritual teachers tell us that there is no other. And so all this from Buddhism, this notion that the self is just an idea created by the mind. That doesn't just hold for you and inside your skull. It holds with the people all around the table. Everyone you're having this conversation with has a false image of who they think they are. It's this idea of a self. And so here are all these illusory selves arguing at the table, trying to defend their own mind's concept of what is true, but it's all an illusion. And so while you're having these conversations, two kind of interesting things from this point. One, go back to the self-illusion. Remember, this thing that's trying to defend itself doesn't even exist. And of course, that's not just true for you, but also for the other. And that's why spiritual teachers tell us there are no others. So what happens at point number 6? So what happens with reaction? So maybe you're into the conversation and all of a sudden you started off pretty good with all this, but then you've got the reaction and now you're ready for battle and everything, all bets are off. Well, even Sartre, Jean-Paul Sartre put it this way. He said, the French were never as free as when they were imprisoned. And that's a very bold thing to say. Why would he say such a thing? Because as all spiritual teachers have told us, our reactions are not determined by external factors. We have a choice in our reactions. And even if that reaction is to not believe the stories that the mind is telling, that is also maybe the most fundamental choice that we have. And so it's not the external, it's the internal. That's a very good, what I like to call de-minders as the conversation may go on and as you may have a reaction. Are you going to buy into it? Even if you fall for it once, there's still another opportunity to disidentify with it. And if you fall for it twice, then there's another opportunity. And the last, I like, of course, Alan Watts and the way he puts things. And he said, real religion transforms anxiety into laughter. So while these conversations are going on and it takes on a left brain seriousness, can you see some play in all of that? The mind may get very serious with all this, but all this disconnection that we seem to experience is really an illusion. There's always a connection behind the separation, a certain cosmic play of irony and satire and drama and the hero and who wins and who loses. Can you see all of that as this massive cosmic play? And for this, it may help if you have an infant around or someone who hasn't really taken on all this seriousness, and maybe you're in the middle of a really intense debate. And, you could see someone who hasn't been taught all this yet, and they're just having fun. And to them, all that's going around the table is a bunch of weird noises. And what can be more funnier than that?